this is the video for how to use the messy area when you need to use anything from paint to paper mache. There is an enormous amount of information in this video. So the first thing to realize is what the paper mache paint messy area is not for. No scissors, no nice supplies, no chairs. If you need to use any of those things, you need to go back out into the regular classroom area, and then you can come back over here. Once you are here, you want to realize that everything in this area can potentially stain. So a paint chart is a really good idea. If you're worried about your shoes, there's no problem just taking them off. For the most part, everything we have back here can come out with hot soap and water. But if you can't put it in the washing machine or use soap, best to not have it back here. So Chromebooks are not really a good idea, and not even necessarily your phone. Then, as far as where supplies are located, so everything, let's see how I want to do this. Everything is located down in these drawers. So you have paper mache stuff here, brushes are located here. You will notice they are divided out in between 2D brushes and then the 3D paper mache brushes. All of these brushes cost, this whole drawer is about $350 worth of art supplies. So when you wonder, like, why is she freaking out about a dirty brush? Like, you think you're just leaving a mess for someone else. You're not. You're destroying an art supply and you're costing us money. I have containers down here. I have both containers where you can store supply and put a lid on it for another time, or I have containers that are long-term. All of your different paint supplies are located in this drawer. You'll notice I have gallon supplies versus nice quality supplies. If something's in a little container, it means I don't have a lot of it. You should only use it on a final art project. And you can keep on looking through. One of the fun ones to know is that I have a whole bunch of papers for you to use in this area that are to practice on, that it's okay if you're going to throw away at the end of the day. If you're actually wanting to paint for a project, you want to let me know, because I keep the paint paper in a separate location and we cut it to the size that you need, but I have huge sizes to very small sizes. Okay, then logistics, how to get paint, how do you mix paint, all those sorts of things. So, first off, I recommend putting paint on one of those scrap papers that I have available. And then the paint that is free to practice with, that you find in the big gallons, is also stored in these little containers for easy use. Sometimes you pick up a container and you're like, there's nothing in here. So you can run it under cold water, hot water if you need to get it open. Once you're able to open the container, you place it in the sink. You find the gallon that you need. Unscrew the lid. Why can't I find the gallon that I need? Here it is. Unscrew the lid. Fill it from here in the sink. Be careful not to overflow it. When you're all done, you need to wipe off that edge by grabbing a paper towel, which you can find at either side of the island. Wiping it off, screwing back both lids, and you're good to go. Make sure to always put stuff back in the drawers. No one is supposed to work at the island or store stuff on the island, so it always needs put back away, or else I'll just sit down the messy area. Then, by the way, trash cans are on either side of the island. Okay, now to work with my paint. So, when we practice with paint, we always only take what we need. It's never a problem to experiment with paint. It's always a problem to throw away unused paint. So we only use dime size amounts. And then, for today's purpose, I want you to grab out several different kinds of brushes to see what happens. So these are painting supplies. So I can apply paint. So look, got a little swatch of it here. So I can apply paint with a palette knife, either in a line, or I can use that palette knife to swoosh out color. I want you to practice with, this is huge, I didn't need to grab this big a brush, with a dry technique where I keep the paint on the top and then pull down. And that kind of effect versus if I flip it over. And then you'll notice this runs out of paint really quick, which is where these guys are really helpful, the black brushes. So I ran out of paint, so I'm going to get a little bit more. And this one you kind of spin to load it up. I hold the brush like a pencil, and then you will notice that this brush is kind of fun because I can get really what are called calligraphic lines, and then you can always mix and match supplies. So I put a paint line down with one thing, and then I can go over the top with another thing. After you've experimented with paint, you're probably wondering, how do I clean it up? So first thing to know is, if you do not need this, you throw it, fold it in half, and then throw it away. But what if I want to keep this? Okay, so we're gonna go right over into here. Right next to us are two racks. We have the rack for 3D material, and then we have the drying rack. By the way, here's where I got my paint shirt from. The drying rack for 2D material. You just take this, you set it on the bottom rack, let others set theirs up, and then once it's full, you drop the rack down so that the next person can go. So as the day continues, the work gets higher. If we run out of drying space room, I often move things off the shelf. So it's not that someone threw it away, it's just that I moved it to a different location and you can just ask me. Then you have to clean your stuff up at the sink. So you take all your stuff to the sink, go ahead and get the sink going, and then you're gonna squirt orange Gojo. It's from these orange, so you can see one in the back there, orange containers into your hand. You're gonna take all your supplies and you're gonna rub it around in that soap. And then you are gonna start to let the water run over your supplies. You know they are clean when the water runs clean. You'll notice that that happens really fast, and I also tend to use the brush. It kind of cleans my hands as I'm going. Then the final step that's really important is we actually don't want to take them to the drying rack like this. We want to reform the brush so there's a nice clean edge and all the bristles are pointed in the right direction. And that will be a happy thing to use for the next time. Then, how to clean your tabletop. Well, you can get a wet paper towel or wet rag, whichever you happen to prefer. The bigger the mess, the more you want to use. The paint needs wiped off completely. And then these, if you are done using them, get folded in half and put into the trash can. Make sure to always return the lid to your paint so it doesn't dry out, and to return it to the bin or to the drawer. All right, that was phase one. Phase two is paper mache. Let's lift you up here a second. So paper mache is held underneath here in these buckets. We never clean these buckets out, we just let them continue. But what if I need to make new paper mache? Well, you find a gallon of glue. And sometimes it's a hunt. And then it is 50% glue to 50% water. So I take my paper mache lid off, and then, very important, I set my bucket in the sink. I put in glue, and you can put in more glue than that, but I just started it, and then I visually have to think about what is 50%. So to me, that is 50% water to 50% glue. I stick it inside there. I can either use my hand to mix it up, or I can use one of these brushes. We never use green handle or black handle brushes with paper mache paste. And then I mix it all up. I know I have a good mix when it feels like a liquidy milkshake. Okay, then how do you paper mache? Transition. Okay, so we're right over here. And then grab one of those papers again. Okay. So we are going to grab just any paper, and you need to cut it into strips. And then you have two methods of doing this. Method number one is to actually set your strip on the table, paint on paper mache paste, and then you plop it onto your project. The benefit of this method is it's less likely to cause your project to wrinkle or to warp. Option number 2, oh, and then don't forget, you would want to go over the top with that paper mache piece, and then this will make sure that that piece actually turns out shiny. Option number 2 is to go ahead and cover what you are paper macheing with paper mache paste. Then put down your piece. You always want to overlap them. And then once you've put down one piece, don't forget to put a little bit more paint or paper mache paste before you lay your next piece. After a couple of pieces are laid, you can finish with the top coat. And you'll notice that my second one's wrinkled more than my first one. This then would need to go into the drying rack if I wanted to keep it. For our practices today, you can go ahead and fold it up and just throw it away like this. But now, how do I clean up? Because my hands are sticky, my feet are maybe sticky. What's all this that I deal with? So you're going to get a paper towel, but this time you're going to squirt a little bit of orange gojo on it before you get it wet. Okay, so a little bit of orange gojo. I'm going to clean up my area. Do not forget to wipe down the edge of the table, and if you need to, set it on the ground and clean up the floor. We always need to remember that this space is probably wet, and so be careful when you're walking not to fall. And then brushes get a very special cleanup. Obviously the container, you put the lid back on and put it away. I'm not going to show you that because I assume you can do it. Squirting orange gojo soap into the hand. You want to make sure that soap gets all the way into the brush before you turn on the water. And then it's really important, the brush needs to feel like all of the paste is out. If we leave even the small amount of glue in there, it will ruin our brush. Reform the brush, put it in the drying rack, and there you go. Make sure you take an opportunity to play around with the paint and play around with the paper mache and to carefully clean up your mess afterwards.